Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is May 1st, 2026. What a privilege to be present with all of you from all over the world for all these days, months, and years. Deborah and Scott, Meirav, good to see you. Cynthia, Jonathan, Boker Tov. Hi, John. Nice to see you. Jerry, welcome, welcome. Let's see who else is here so we can say a few more good mornings, and then we'll get started with our learning for the day. Neil, nice to see you. Jerry and Susan, Barbara, nice to see you too. All right, on Instagram, we are good. Facebook, we are good. Marcia and Rosa, Lydia, good morning. Deborah, nice to see you. All right, friends, let's take a breath. Sharon and Amy and Cheryl, good morning. Good to see you, friends. Dave and Arlene and Cecile, hi, Penny. It's broadcast 1539. Thanks, Penny. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ay ya la la la. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Hafokah ve'hafokah, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Dinei la 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 la, dinei la 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 la, ay la la la. All right, everybody, good morning. It's good to see all of you. Getting ready for Shabbat. Hope you are feeling some good energy coming your way. Parshat Emor. We've been discussing it all week, and among the different dimensions that are worthy of attention from this week's Torah portion, Emor, is the idea of time. We are given a list of holidays, and in a certain sense, it feels very straightforward and simple. It's one of those sections of the Torah that's easy to read through and to go through it quickly. But it's deceptively simple, as Rabbi Jonathan Sachs points out, knowing that there are different notions of time that for a Jew is essential. He even quotes Irving Berlin, who pointed out that many people have large swaths of territory but very little history. He said Jews at the time, this is the early 1900s, have massive amounts of history, time, and little territory. For us, it is fascinating to reoccupy a space and time that we had lost so long ago. What does time mean when we actually are part of writing history once again, being authors of our own next chapter? So in the Parsha, we have the cycle of the pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, which tell of the great moments of ancient Jewish history. Liberation, that's the Exodus that we talk about in Pesach. Shavuot marks the beginning of our covenantal journey because we receive Torah. We commemorate on Shavuot. And Sukkot brings us a little bit earlier, or actually forward. Those are the 40 years in the desert because we re-enter the tents, which means that time moves forward, but also we go through it in cycles. There are different ways that this becomes clear most recently and most intensely in reading the book written by Rachel Goldberg Polin, which I hope you have. It is a must have for every home, not just Jewish home, for every home. It's called When We See You Again. Even the title talks about time in a very intentional way. When we see you again. She and her beautiful husband, John, are speaking directly to their son, Hirsch, through their hearts, through their practices, through her writing. And when we see you again presumes that time will again loop. We call that Mashiach, when time actually comes to a close. For all of the complexity of that idea, it tells us that time through a Jewish lens is not only linear. It comes in cycles. It comes and goes. And because of the holidays, we re-enter the past. Well, there was a moment just this week that made it very clear to me. Not a simple moment. I have dear friends in London. I'm assuming that some of us do as well. And with the sixth violent anti-Semitic attack out of thousands of anti-Semitic attacks during the last year in England, just this last week, a terrorist went on a stabbing attack and seriously wounded two Jewish men, one in his 70s, one in his 30s. The incident was captured on video. It is incredibly intense to watch. And we watch this as anti-Semitism grows, and the protection of Jews is something that we need to advocate more loudly than we thought we would have needed to, which in a certain sense is a return in time. I'm part of a project, a filming project that might turn into a project, or might just remain testimony recorded somewhere, called Here We Go Again, where the stories that I remember hearing from people my grandparents' age are suddenly current again. But nothing made it clearer to me than a video interview I saw on the BBC of a high school teacher, a rabbi from London, who was interviewed after the attack. And here's what he shared. He was leading a trip of 40 high school students, Jewish high school students, through the camps in Poland. He was in Auschwitz with them when he got the ping on his phone telling him what had happened in Golders Green in London. And he had to absent himself from where he was with the students in Auschwitz. He said he was in the gas chambers with his students so that he could call his family and ask if they were okay, and zoom in on the pictures that he had been sent to identify by the legs, by the shoes, was this my family? And then he had to find a way to bring his students, while still in Auschwitz but not anymore in the chambers, to say, you might want to check in with your family to see if they are okay. He said that part of this trip was visiting places that once were bustling centers of Jewish culture. And while there is a rebirth of Jewish culture miraculously in parts of Poland, it is not the cosmopolitan center of the Jewish universe that it had been. And the irony, the tragedy of time looping this way tells us that we do move forward through time, and yet the past moves forward with us and sometimes speaks too loudly in our ears. So much so that bereaved parents have to write this kind of a book. Now, I know that circumstances in one part of the world are not the same as in the other, and what does feel like a direct repetition of our history is changed because of circumstance, including the birth of our people in our indigenous homeland. While I know all of that, and while I know that all of these modern moments that I am now putting into conversation, or are the same conversation, are different than the Torah's notion of time, we learn from two parts of time that are mentioned in the Parsha that what we're talking about today actually fits into the Parsha. Because not only do we hear about the cycle of holidays, we also hear about Shabbat. Shabbat is not a cycle within the year, it is constantly returning. And among the differences between Shabbat and the other holidays, and this is an insight of Rabbi Sachs, you know from the blessings over grape juice or wine that we say on these days what the differences are. We say about on Shabbat, about this moment, Mikadesha Shabbat, God, you sanctify Shabbat. But for holidays we say, Mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim, you sanctify Israel, and we sanctify those days, which means that the cycle of time that we are in, even in the Parsha, and certainly in our days, and in praise of the Shomrim, the Jewish community self-protection, the way that we organize to protect each other. It tells of a journey toward greater agency and responsibility in our hands. We must answer Arlene's question, which is in many people's hearts. I'm just going to read it out loud. Arlene writes, I was just talking to a friend about the anti-Semitism in the U.S. Should we be more concerned? Are we seeing the 1930s in Germany happening now? That is a question that only a few of us are courageous to actually ask, even though it is a very important question. And as I said, it is not the same. It is not the same. And as Ephraim just wrote, they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat, has been part of the way we have defined our holy days. The story doesn't end with the bad guys winning. But it is really important, Arlene, for us to take the question seriously, to see one glaring difference between the then and the now, which is the rebirth of our people and a return to history that the birth of the State of Israel recognizes. It has changed our notion of what we deserve and our acknowledgement publicly on the world stage of the force we must have in order to live. And so not only are we different, but we have the ability to make circumstances different as well. In Germany, many steps led to the dehumanization of Jews. And so what we must do is recognize that we have a role to play when any of those steps seem to be happening in our world, in our moment, in our society. It is a complicated thing to do, but we are not allowed to shirk the responsibility from being authors of our own times. We are co-authors, to be sure. We should be humble with the power that we have acquired. We should be ethical with a force that we wish we didn't need. But given how history does seem to repeat itself, unless we remember, and then sometimes even so, we should look at this parsha to understand that time does this. It comes around, what philosophers sometimes have called the eternal return, but it also moves forward. And what is important about that forward move through time is that it requires something of us. Remember, on Shabbat, it is Mikadesh Shabbat. God, you sanctify Shabbat. But on holidays, it is Mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. We have been given this measure of holiness in our day. And what we do with that is Mikadesh Hazmanim. We sanctify times. So I bless us, friends. I bless us to keep our eyes open, to keep our hearts as tender as we possibly can, and to make sure that we strengthen ourselves and scream from the rooftops when wrong is done to the Jewish community and when wrong is done to any human being. We have a voice louder and stronger than ever before. It's our obligation to use it. We are the ones who are Mikadesh Hazmanim, because God told us to add sanctity to this world, to not let the divine image be diminished, to include ourselves in the list of those who deserve dignity and who are threatened, but never to see ourselves as victims. Never again. We move forward through time too. That's It's a complicated blessing, but it is a blessing. Heavy way to go into Shabbat, friends. Heavy way. But the gift is we are strong enough to lift that burden, especially when we do it together. So bless you all, friends, with that recognition of how strong we are. Let's send our hearts to the east. Let's sing. Kol hod balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefate mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים. Am Yisrael Chai. Shabbat Shalom, my friends.